For years, Nathan Calloway never asked his father for anything. He simply stayed. While his sister, Rebecca, lived far away, Nathan became the son who handled every appointment, every emergency, and every difficult day. Then, everything changed. The moment 77-year-old Joseph Calloway became seriously ill, Rebecca and her husband, Dennis Hunt, suddenly began visiting every single week. Dennis quietly convinced Joseph that the son caring for him wasn't acting out of love, he was waiting for the inheritance. A new will erased Nathan from a $2.8 million estate. It looked like a brother had lost everything. But no one expected the woman sitting beside Dennis to become the one who destroyed his lies. Months later, Rebecca entered the courtroom in a wheelchair to testify against her own husband. Stay with us until the very end, because today's story proves that the strongest act of love isn't always standing beside your spouse. Sometimes it's finding the courage to stand beside the brother you were tricked into doubting. Joseph Calloway was 77 years old and had spent his career as a high school history teacher in Richmond, Virginia, retiring in 2012 after 33 years in the classroom. He had built a modest but meaningful estate over those decades, including his home, a rental property he had purchased in 2001, and savings accumulated through disciplined management, valued together at $2.8 million. His wife had passed in 2016, and his son Nathan, 44, had become his most consistent daily presence almost immediately afterward, rearranging his own life to ensure his father was never managing the difficult parts of aging alone. Nathan had no siblings in the house. He did not have a partner to share the responsibility with. He had a demanding job in logistics management and a commute that he had restructured around his father's schedule. He drove Joseph to every medical appointment. He sat with him through the difficult nights that followed his wife's death. He handled the insurance paperwork, the household maintenance, the 100 other practical details that accumulate in the life of an elderly person living alone. He did all of it without complaint and without keeping any record of what it cost him, because it had never occurred to him to think of it that way. Rebecca Calloway Hunt, 52, had married Dennis Hunt, 55, in 2001 and had lived in Charlotte for over 20 years. She and Nathan had maintained a warm but geographically distant relationship, speaking regularly by phone and seeing each other at Christmas and occasionally in the summers. Rebecca had a genuine affection for her brother and had told him more than once that she did not know how he managed everything he was managing. Dennis had his own commercial contracting business in Charlotte that had been performing below expectations for several years, a situation he had described to Rebecca as temporary and manageable. It was neither temporary nor manageable. By early 2022, Dennis had accumulated significant business debt and was facing the kind of cash flow pressure that made every large number he encountered feel like a potential solution to a problem he could not solve any other way. When Joseph's health declined seriously following a hospitalization in the spring of 2022, Rebecca called Nathan with genuine concern and told him she and Dennis wanted to come and help. Nathan was relieved. Joseph was pleased. Dennis began visiting with a warmth and attentiveness that made everyone around him feel his presence was entirely about the family. Over the following months, Dennis found time alone with Joseph in the intervals between Nathan's visits. He did not arrive with an accusation. He arrived with a concern, expressed quietly and with apparent reluctance as something he felt he owed his father-in-law as someone who genuinely cared about him. He told Joseph that he had heard Nathan was asking about the rental property without mentioning it to him. Nathan had not been asking about the rental property. He had no idea where his father had heard that. In September of 2022, Dennis arranged for a mobile notary and a document preparation service to visit Joseph's home on a Thursday morning while Nathan was at work. Rebecca was present during the visit, having been told by Dennis that the appointment was a routine estate update that Dennis thought would give Joseph peace of mind. Dennis had not told her what the document contained. Joseph signed the revised will at his kitchen table. It named Rebecca as the sole beneficiary of the full estate. Nathan was not mentioned. Rebecca stood nearby and believed she was witnessing a routine administrative update. Joseph Calloway passed in January 2023. Dennis filed the will within the week. Nathan discovered the document when the estate attorney contacted him. He called Rebecca immediately. Her response told him everything. She did not know what document he was describing. She did not know Nathan had been removed. She asked Dennis that evening what the document had contained. Dennis told her Nathan had been excluded because Joseph had wanted it that way. He told her Joseph had made his wishes clear. He told her to trust him. Rebecca did not sleep that night. She called Nathan the following morning and told him she believed him. She called her own attorney the day after that. Nathan retained attorney Carol Simmons, a probate litigator in Richmond with 15 years of experience. Carol filed the will contest immediately and began building the case around the medical records from the months surrounding the signing. Joseph's physician had documented increasing cognitive vulnerability during his illness, specifically noting that his capacity to independently evaluate complex interpersonal situations had been compromised by his treatment regimen and the cumulative effects of his condition. Carol also obtained Dennis's business financial records through discovery and found the full picture of his debt situation, the timeline of which corresponded precisely with the beginning of the weekly visits to Richmond. She found that Dennis had made a partial payment on a significant business debt in the week following Joseph's death, using funds he had accessed through a joint account Rebecca had not previously known existed. Rebecca had been diagnosed with a serious autoimmune condition in late 2022 that had significantly affected her mobility. By the time the hearing was scheduled, she required a wheelchair for anything beyond limited movement. She had been advised by her physician to minimize physical exertion. She appeared in court regardless. The hearing was held before the Honorable Judge William Tate at the Richmond Circuit Court. Carol Simmons presented the medical records, the forensic financial analysis connecting Dennis's debt timeline to the visits, and the evidence of the payment made following Joseph's death. She called Nathan to testify about the specific moments his father had repeated things he had never said, tracing each instance to the days following Dennis's private conversations with Joseph. Then she called Rebecca Hunt. Rebecca entered the courtroom in a wheelchair, accompanied by her own attorney. She had filed for divorce the previous month. She sat in the witness box and answered every question Carol asked with the kind of steady, deliberate honesty that cost something real to sustain. She described standing in her father's kitchen, believing she was witnessing a routine document signing. She described the conversation with Dennis the evening Nathan called. She described the night she had not slept and the morning she had called her brother. She described every conversation she could recall in which Dennis had spoken about Joseph's finances, identifying the specific moments she now understood had been designed to shape her own perception of Nathan in ways she had not recognized at the time. She told the court that she had not understood what was happening in her father's house during those months because she was standing beside the person who was making it happen and had believed she was simply supporting her family. She did not look at Dennis during her testimony. She looked at Nathan once near the end and did not look away until she had finished. Dennis's attorney argued Joseph had made a genuine decision to provide for his daughter, and that Rebecca's testimony was shaped by the breakdown of her marriage rather than accurate recollection.
Carol Simmons asked the court to consider how Rebecca's testimony could be attributed to marital breakdown when the financial records showed Dennis had made a debt payment using funds accessed after Joseph's death, and when Rebecca had come forward before she had fully processed what had been done to her father, in a wheelchair, with a serious medical condition, because she believed it was the right thing to do. Judge William Tate ruled the estate invalid, finding that Joseph had been subjected to a deliberate and sustained campaign of undue influence, and that the circumstances of the signing, including the document preparation service chosen, the absence of independent counsel, and the financial records connecting Dennis to specific motivations, established a clear pattern of exploitation. He ordered the estate distributed equally between Nathan and Rebecca under Joseph's original will, and referred Dennis to the Richmond Commonwealth's attorney for elder financial exploitation and fraud. Dennis was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in Virginia State Prison. His contracting business was dissolved during the proceedings. Rebecca Calloway recovered slowly through the following year. She sold the Charlotte house and moved to Richmond, 10 minutes from Nathan, for the first time since she had left for college 30 decades earlier. Nathan drove her to her medical appointments. She told him once that she was sorry it had taken this long to be close enough to do something useful. He told her she had done the most useful thing anyone had ever done for him. Joseph Calloway had spent 33 years teaching students that the most important question you could ask about any piece of information was where it had come from. In the end, the information that had been used against his son had come from the person sitting next to his daughter, and the person sitting next to his daughter had walked into a courtroom in a wheelchair to make sure the court understood exactly where it had come from. Would you have had the courage to do what Rebecca did? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story moved you, subscribe to Court of Shadows for more courtroom drama stories every week.